So welcome to the Insight series. I'm so excited. I have Natasa with me. So similar name, different spelling. And this is part of the Insight series. It's really to bring information and insights to people who are on their journey of soulful parenting, intuitive parenting, and also sort of twofold for me, which I think is really important, is also for teens or young adults to also be able to connect and realize that people are woke at a young age or a younger age, and also that they're not alone. So there's a kind of a multi-purpose here. So for parents of younger children who may be experiencing signs within their children, for those that are going through an awakening process themselves as parents, and also for those that are going through it maybe at a sort of teen to young adult age. So I'm really, really excited. So Natasa is a transformation coach and awakening facilitator, and she's a conscious mother of a gifted and awake boy who is coming up 8, is that right, from memory?
Yeah, he's coming up 8 now in a week.
Yeah. And you have such a big heart for children, and I know you've got a really strong connection with the ocean and with Mother Earth as well, with Gaia. And Natasa, you love supporting conscious parents through their journey of parenthood. And you've had your own experiences, and sometimes that has been challenging with you yourself. And yet it's also been one of the greatest gifts and teachers in your life. And I can attest to that with my experience as well, which is beautiful. You have a multi-dimensional healing gifts, and you're trained, which I just is so fascinating for me as well, like in so many different modalities. So you've got the energy psychology, the coaching, the NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming, and experiential learning. And you've got a really good bridge between the physical and the metaphysical. And you bring in that connecting with the scientific understanding and such a grounded spirituality as well. And of course, all of this comes from such an open heart of love. So with that intro, which is just so incredible, Natasa, I'll hand over to you. And yeah, maybe we could just start with your process of awakening, or that intuitive knowing, in your life.
Yes, thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. Sure. So actually, as a child, I think I was quite awake, but I just had some experiences, like traumatic experiences, adverse experiences, that made me shut it down. So I remember even one time when I was punished for being somewhere, I don't know where I was in a different world. And I remember being punished for that by a teacher, because suddenly I woke up being in class and I'm like, how did I get here? I don't have a clue what we're doing, and she punished me. And so I really suppressed everything. And I also grew up in an atheist family. But what was with me through all those years was a fascination for everything that was kind of paranormal in a way, or energetic. And also through early adulthood, when I look back now, and maybe that's interesting for the young people who are watching, or also for parents, I had so many things that were pointing to a multidimensionality, but I didn't understand them as such. So it was, for instance, I would work with light. So I would send light. If I'd see a dead animal on the street, I would just send light. Or if I would, I would work with energy. I would put my hands on places that would hurt, and they would stop hurting. Or my mom called me a witch, actually, but in a good way. Because when I was very little, even 4 or 5 years old, around there, she had a massage therapist. And then I would play, like, kind of in between. She would lay on the floor when she had backache, and I would play, like, giving her a massage. And she would tell me, "You're a witch. How do you do that? You give me a massage, you're a kid, and you're even better than my therapist." It just goes, it's like, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I'm just playing around.
So how old were you, Natasa?
Sorry?
Like, what age
were you? I was around 4 or 5, because I remember that I was also, I would walk on her back, So if I was much older, I wouldn't have done that. And she tells me like you were around 5, something like that. And also from where we lived, it could be around that age. I don't know. Maybe I was 6 or, but I was young. And so, and it continued. So she would call me a witch all the time because it continued throughout, living with my mother all the time that I was in that age. So actually there were things, but I didn't understand them. It was part of me. And at the same time, I was a very rational person. That's where the other part of me comes in, the scientific and the NLP and all of that, the coaching, because one, how I grew up in family, and number 2, I remember I had decided like 3 days before my father died, and he had cancer, but we didn't know he had cancer as kids. They wanted to protect us. And so I remember that I learned that 3 days before he died, he was in the hospital for the last 2 weeks. And they said they found a new medication for him. And I asked like, so is he going to be okay then? And they said, no, it's just taking away his pain. And I was 12 at the time. And I remember thinking like, whoa, so that means they don't have anything to heal him. That was the first time I realized, there's no cure, as they say in my family. And so I decided to pray for the first time in my life, because I grew up in an atheist family. So I would pray for 3 nights, and then he died. And I decided there's no God. And that's so, that was very long with me. And that was also part of that rational left-brained part of me, because that was where I could hold on to something, because God didn't exist. That was the proof then at 12. And so my whole awakening journey was actually finding back to that spirituality, to that connection, to that knowing that I'm supported, to that knowing that there's a universe that has my back, whether you call it God or source or spirit or nature or Mother Earth, whatever you call it, it's like we all have different names. But that there's a consciousness. And that's also how I got into quantum physics, because that was the way I could enter that world.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And so what happened actually, my child was the real, awakening motor, if you want to call it like that, and the trigger, because I had a great life. I was an executive coach, business coach. I would work with teams and leaders and CEOs and and I had a lot of free time, because that's how I would organize that for myself. But in a way, there was a part of me that wasn't happy. And then something happened when a relationship transitioned. And it was not about what happened, but how it happened. It was quite a traumatic experience for me. And I had really a dark night of the soul. So all of my beliefs just crumbled. What I thought I could trust and have faith in was just gone. It was like the whole world would just go upside down. Friends I thought they would be for me, they weren't there for me. Like it was just like everything crumbled in my world. Of course, it wasn't everything, but that's the perception we have, right? On situations. And so I remember getting out of that, and as I was getting better, because I was applying all of the tools that I already had back then, and I was getting support. And I remember being at the lake nearby where I live, and saying like, universe, I'm fed up with this kind of life. Send me my master now. I just want to know what's behind life and get the secrets and all of that. And so later, I found out that I was pregnant. And so I didn't realize back then, but this was my master, and is my master till today. That's why you said that so beautifully in the introduction. He's like my greatest teacher. That's my son. And it took quite a lot, like decisions and everything. And I was still in it wasn't like, oh, wow, I'm pregnant, beautiful, thank you for my master. I wasn't prepared to be pregnant at all. I was just out of a 6-year relationship. I had an affair, and it's completely crazy. We don't have to go into that, but it's just like, oh my God, what did I do, And I was 41. I wasn't a 20-something-year-old mother. I was 41 when I got pregnant. And so yeah, I gave birth in 2012. It's just funny as well, I think, because we know that 2012 there was this huge wave of awakening, right? And that's when my son came in. And I was still in a very victim state of consciousness, feeling like, oh my God, because I knew I would stay single. You know, from the moment I was pregnant, I actually knew 2 weeks later that I would be really single 24/7. And that's what I was. So I went through all of pregnancy alone, all of giving birth, everything, all this stuff. And so that was quite a tough time, you know, to go through.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, with your spiritual interests and also the reality of the human form going through that, like,
Yeah,
it's hard, right? That it's not all, you know, I think it's sort of a little bit of a segue there, but I often think that people expect, you know, when you work with energy and spirit, and people seem to think that you are this amazing parent that never gets rocked, or, you know, and sometimes I think it's worse. It's just because you're exposing all those layers as you go through all of that. You know, you just have an understanding of it's your work and what's the showing me, and you know, it's but yeah, sorry, it's an incredible thing to go through by yourself. So yeah.
But you know, on the other hand, it made me so strong, and I realized that only years later, because when you go through things like that by yourself, in a way, by yourself, like talking about this dimension, then you know, I had these situations happening. Like there was a mom in a hotel. I was still working, but much less. So I would have a seminar here, a seminar there, and they were live. At that time, I wasn't online yet. And I would go to a hotel, you know, to give the seminar to that business group. And I would just take a babysitter with me. So I would like get up in the morning, have breakfast with my son, breastfeed, give him to the babysitter, go and work. In every break, I would go back to breastfeed or to have my lunch and dinner, and I'll sleep in the same room with my child, because I couldn't just give my child away and have him cry. For me, that was like, I'm gonna give my child that trust in life. That was my main goal, you know. And so that was incredible. And then I met this woman, and she was on a holiday in the same hotel, alone with a child, and she had 2 backpacks, and I had material for the seminar and my own backpack and everything, you know, like to sleep for 2 nights and whatever. And she's like completely helpless, saying like, I'm the first time alone without my husband. I don't know how to bring the baby and you know, the backpacks and everything to the car. And I'm like, no worries, where's your car? We'll take that as well.
Oh, I love that.
That's when I realized, like, oh my God, okay, that was maybe an extreme example, but still it was like, oh wow, I'm growing through this, you know. And so to make the long story short, actually in 2015 I had a near burnout experience. That's how I call it, not a near death, but a near burnout experience. I really almost had a burnout. I was fatigued, I was depleted, I was unhappy, I was discontent. I was like just living, you know, like the 9-to-5 job just as a single mom, you know. That's the 24/7 job as a single mom. And that was due to the victim consciousness. Like, I cannot go to rebuild my pelvis because I cannot give my child away, and all the other women, they can leave them with their husband and go and do what they need for their self-care. Or I cannot go to yoga, they can do it. You know, it's always that I'm single, so I can't do it. I was very much in that victim consciousness. I don't have support, they do. They have grandmothers, I don't have, you know, my mom wasn't healthy at the time. Now she is much better, and it's different. And so that was one thing. And the other thing was wanting to be a perfectionist mother. Like,
we spoke about this. Yeah, I hear you on that.
You know, to have everything, and I would give everything of me, but I wouldn't take care of myself. And so there was this almost burnout and fatigue and illness and constant infections and stuff like that. And so I realized that I had to take care of myself if I wanted to survive, even, and to be healthy, to take care of my child.
So he would have been about 3 then, is that right?
He was around 3. Luckily, because that was the age when he wanted to interact with other children, you know, and so we had a beautiful daycare just next to my house, and he wanted to go, and so that all kind of, you know, I was so guided, that all kind of, I didn't know then, but now I see how everything fit together, you know. And so but you know, and that's maybe one of the messages, and I know many speakers have talked about that. I have something in my on your show, is we need to take care of ourselves. And at that time, for me, it was just the survival. I need to take care of myself, and I had really trouble getting into a better state until I shifted my perspective, and that was, I realized, wait a second, children up to the age of 6 or 7 even, they are very much in theta waves, brain waves. So they just soak up everything from their parents, their beliefs, their ways of being, like everything. Plus, you're always a role model for your child. And I realized, oh my God, what kind of a role model am I if I am depleting myself and giving my life away for my child? What is he going to do when he grows up? He'll do everything for his wife, for his children, for his friends, and he will not take care of himself. And he will end up in a burnout or something worse or whatever. And so that was what really shifted my consciousness. Like, wait a second, I can talk to him about whatever I want, but if I don't live that, if I don't embody that, then chances are very, very high that he's not gonna have that resource for his life.
Yeah, that was my, like, part of my shift as well. Like, I went through a stage where, you know, I'd separated from my daughter's father, and I was just thrown overnight into juggling a full-time job and being a single mum. And, you know, he had her for 1 day a week at that stage. And that was something, you know, I still got that 1 day, but it was spent working because I couldn't do my hours, and I was, you know, working at night after she went to bed. And that was, I was exactly the same realization, like the self-care went out the window. And I had friends like offering to pick her up from daycare. No, I've got to, you know, like, I can do this, or, you know, and, you know, and looking back, I wasn't really coping that well, but I was so stubborn and determined that I was okay. But the big thing for me as an awareness was I just didn't know how to accept help, even when it was offered to me, you know. So yeah,
I can relate so much to that. And, you know, like, being like the single parent for a while, it's even harder. Like, for me, it's the same. It's so hard because I catch myself. I go, like, somebody goes like, should I help you? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. And then I go like, wait a second, why not? Yes, please. You know, it's like one of those programs that we have, and also programming from further back, you know.
Oh yeah. Sorry, keep going. I just, this is such a good point.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And so I think the continuation of my awakening story was actually, I realized that it was all about the heart, meaning following really my heart's knowing and my heart's path, my purpose, my joy, you know. And when I started opening to love, which is the path of the heart, right? And really expanding, and the whole thing came in. It was like the spirituality, my awakening took off at warp speed. And so light language started coming in. So I started speaking light language, and, you know, like seeing through the veil, you know, like having this experience of other dimensions. And I remember that when I was a child, I had this inner knowing. I remember I went somewhere and I saw this tree, and I thought, there is another world existing parallel to the world that I see now. You know,
it's awesome. Yeah.
And so suddenly this whole remembering came back through work I did with others, and programs and coaching, of course. And I'll say to everybody, that's also that what we talked about before. Don't think you have to do everything by yourself. like get yourself support if you feel you want support for whatever reason. You don't need to be on an awakening journey and in spirituality or whatever, but I think people who watch this are conscious parents or conscious young people. And so listen to your heart, and if you need support and if you feel, yes, I resonate with somebody and I'd like support, do that, because we're not here to do everything by ourselves.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and so so that's actually what happened, and how I remember it, what I'm here to bring and to support people, and then I shifted into more of that work.
Through your process, one of the themes that have come up, and I think you alluded to at the start, was sort of like at some point kind of blocking or feeling overwhelmed by the intuition or the spirit, or kind of shutting it down a little bit to try and grasp. Did you ever go through that kind of experience where you kind of just felt like it was a bit overwhelming, or you couldn't understand it and you just kind of wanted it to go away for a little bit, or it was too much? And
I know now what you refer to, what we talked about in the pre-call.
Yeah, I couldn't remember whether it was that call or whether it was before.
Yeah. About the little being that came. Yeah. So I was thank you for reminding me. I was around 22, 3, something like that. I was in a emotionally and like psychically, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know the English word. English is not my first language, so excuse me, but you'll know what I mean. In a little abusive relationship, not physically, but in all other ways. Not healthy for sure for any of us. And it was a very tough time for me back then, because I wasn't used to talking about these things to anybody. It was my first relationship, and I kept everything for myself. And so what came up was that I had these nightmares and dreams, and also remembering past lives of trauma, of being abused and stuff like that. And I literally didn't know where to turn with that. And of course, because that was my frequency I was in, I chose the wrong, not very beneficial for me therapist. I got like, no, that's not for me. And so, it was kind of difficult. And then at some point, I had this little being visiting me. And that was,
I love it. Yeah.
It was actually a very beautiful being, in a way. It was like a dwarf-like being with hair like in all directions. And I know this sounds crazy now, but that's really what I saw. And it was wherever I'd go in the apartment, it would just be there and jump in front of my face. Like around 2 meters away from me, 1.5, something like that. And I was very confused, I didn't know what to do. And I was like, okay. And at some point I took my courage and I said like, okay, what do you want from me? And when I really tuned in from not being afraid anymore to ask, and I really asked from there, at that time, it wasn't dropping in my heart and expanding my heart. I didn't know these techniques and that way of being. But I did ask from a place of at least neutrality. And it said like, I want to be loved. And I sent it love, and it disappeared, and it never came back in a way that it would show for me, but it stays with me in my heart in a way. And I believe today it was really that support for me that I just locked it down, because that was like, I had to explain that with my rational mind. And so what I explained to me was, okay, this being, that's an inner image of my inner, like emotional, mental state. And that's what I'm projecting. And that's why it came up. And now I loved it. It's okay. Because I wasn't ready for that. That's so funny. Yeah. So I had these glimpses of awakening coming, and I would push them down until my son came and went like, Mom, now it's time. It's like, you can't hide anymore.
Yeah. So tell us about your son, because he sounds amazing.
Yeah, he's beautiful. He's such a beautiful soul. yeah, when I was pregnant, I remember people telling me like, you have a prince or you have a special child. And I would go like, yeah, what are they talking about? And then when I gave birth, I was first at home, and then it's allowed here in Switzerland. And the midwife was, of course, with me, two of them and stuff. And the birth gets stuck, and I had to go to the hospital to have a C-section. And they were beautiful because they didn't take him away from me. They would just, the moment they would operate, like he would come out, they would just clean him a bit and immediately give him to me. So that he didn't go for washing, like, you know, bathing or anything. He was there with me. And they put him on my chest. And I remember that till today. He just took his hands and he pushed himself away, like, you know, in the yoga you would do the, what's it called, the cobra, yeah, or something, just a little bit, push himself away and looked straight into my eyes.
Wow.
And I was there.
That's incredible.
I still cannot believe it, because I was there and I remember thinking, this is impossible.
Especially like, the opening of the eyes even, right? Like,
yeah, he had wide open eyes. He has really big eyes, and he looked straight into my face, into my eyes. And I was like, babies can't do that. This is not possible. You know? I knew that, you know, and even the midwife, like when she was with me, because it was, she was with me for the first 2 weeks, then afterwards also home and coming to visit and everything. And after the third day, she would take him like this. He was 3 days old, and she would look at him and and she would go like to me like, I know this is impossible, but your son is smiling at me. He is smiling at me. He's looking at me. I know this is not possible. I'm a midwife. I do this for years. You know?
Incredible.
So it was really interesting. Yeah. When he was a baby. And then, you know, it was kind of, he was around, he could speak when I started realizing. So he was around 3, 4, and we were in the gardening, and I was planting, and he would go like, no, mom, don't put this plant here. She doesn't want to be here. She wants to be over there. I'd go like, okay. And I didn't mind, so I put the plant over there. Or he would go like, these two, they fight. Put them, separate them a bit. They need to have some space, or stuff like that. Or he would cry if I would cut a branch, you know, of a tree he loved or something. And it was like, whoa, you know, such a deep connection to Mother Earth. He always had that, you know, like really this amazing starseed connection. He really does have that until today, you know, like with birds, with animals, they come to him, they like him. And then also sharing wisdom, you know, like sometimes they have that, you know, that for sure. Your daughter is around 4, right?
Yeah.
And so they have suddenly this wisdom comes out of their mouth, and you're like, how on earth can a 4, 5, 6-year-old even think about something like that and look, pronounce it even, or say the words, you know? And then actually when I was invited through my mentor, she told me, share about your awakening story with your child. I was like, whoa, talk to him about that. She's like, yes. So I started, you know, I started sharing a bit, and he goes like, oh yeah, mom, you know, the trees, actually the color of the trees, that's only what we see, but behind it, there's this energy, and it looks like this and that and the other. And he started telling me about what he perceives.
Awesome.
And he started teaching me about crystal grids. You know, I had these crystals, and he's like, oh mom, look. And I go like, I don't know, I want to find out how to make crystal grids. And he's like, oh mom, that's easy, let me show you. Where is north, where is south? And I'm like, he hardly had a concept of what north and south could be. You know, we looked at the compass and talked about it. He's like, mom, where's north, where's south? I go like, here.
Wow.
Okay, you put this here, you know, you need to look like this, because the energy needs to flow. So you need here, you need something. And I'm like, whoa. You know?
That is awesome.
So he's not doing that all the time. Like I just, you know, compressed the whole 7 years now, more or less. But he has these gifts, he has this connection. And actually what he asked me to say today, because I asked him before, I said like, listen, I'll have this interview for, you know, parenting, raising conscious kids. And he said like, tell them, is this there where you can tell them to not tell their kids that this is all invention? You know, and they not say that's just your fantasy or whatever. So my son really asked me to tell you all, when your kids start saying things like this number just lights up and I know it's the right result, or the plant wants to go there, or if they say anything like I saw a mermaid or whatever it is, he told me, tell the parents that don't tell your kids this is just your fantasy.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love it so much. Yeah, and we spoke about this, didn't we? Where I can't remember what exactly we spoke about, but it was around like how like sharing our experiences to help them, but also the normality, or making what they experience as just the norm, exactly. Right? Like rather than making it something, you know, exponential of
exactly.
or different.
Exactly. So don't tell them it's just your fantasy and that's nothing and mermaids don't exist or stuff like that, but also don't make it a huge thing. And that was, I shared with you, that was also a thing for me, that I was so, wow, my child is sharing all these things with me, you know? And then what I realized is when we are too excited about that, kids want to please us, they want our love, and they'll do anything, you know, no matter how conscious you are as a parent, they will still do that to please you. And so he started like telling things and then I would start doubt that, like, are you trying to please me now, or are you really seeing that, you know? And it's like, just let it be something natural. Just, oh wow, thank you for sharing, and thank you for telling me the plant needs to go there, I'll do that. Or I feel the same. Or do you think over there would be also okay? Because maybe that place for you is not the right one. But then just make it just a normal thing in ways that you acknowledge it and allow them to be seen and to be heard. But don't make it a huge, wow, my child is this. If you feel like that, not only to talk about, I don't talk about that usually. I talk with you because you ask me. I don't go around telling people, I have a very awake child, you know, he tells me how to do with crystals. I don't do that because he's just himself. And that's also something, if we can allow them to just be themselves, and no matter whether that's, you know, they like to play with Lego or they like to go you do something else, it doesn't matter. And they feel seen and valued for what they share. I think that's the best, that's from my experience, has been the most supportive for him as well. And sometimes we talk about these things and sometimes we don't for weeks, you know, and it's just normal.
It's amazing. I caught myself, I think it was yesterday, I totally overreacted to something my daughter said. But, you know, like it still happens, but I was just like, wow. But, you know, and then I catch myself and I was, you know, trying to play it cool. But, you know, I don't always catch it in time. But it's such a valid, because sometimes it just takes you by surprise. And, you know, but, you know, we had a beautiful moment. I'm doing a course at the moment and it has a lot of toning in different tones, and you know I've tried more and more now to do these exercises with her in the room rather than and you know to start with she does, you know, kind of I do yoga and we'll try and do intuitive yoga and you know she's underneath me and she's you know and I love that, and now she's seen me and she said to me the other day, I'm just going to let you do it now, Mum, you know, like she recognizes that I'm just going to continue to do it, but she just comes over to me now and she was just toning with me and they pick it up so fast, and you know so for about 2 minutes she was just in sequence with my toning, you know, probably 4 or 5 different tones, and you know it was just so beautiful and she was having so much fun and it made it fun. And I just think it's, you know, they do learn by just witnessing, and you know I think part of this whole series and talking to different people, I've really gone from probably being one of those people that made too big a deal about things to really just realizing I just need to do my thing, and she joins me, you know, with the natural inclination to want to.
And there's nothing wrong, you know, with enjoying that, you know. I also go like, oh, wow, thank you. You know, like, woo. And it's okay because it's just not making it a huge like, oh, you're so special, you're so different. You know, it's just like, yeah, if we're really happy about it, we can be happy about it. That's okay, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's all about joy as well, right? Like it's
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's interesting experiences, you know, and with we are so challenged because of that also, because sometimes they're so wise.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, they are still 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds or 10-year-olds, you know. And I caught myself expecting from him, you know, because there was so much wisdom, and then I started treating him like an adult. And maybe that's also a single mom thing, because there is no partner who you would share, you know, some things with every day at lunch, at dinner, or whenever you meet. And then it's like your child is the only one that's there, and then he speaks so much wisdom, and it's natural. But as single parents, we have to be really, really careful about that we don't expect too much from them, or overload them with our own responsibilities. Even small things like, you know, you say things and that's natural, you can't prevent that, like, oh, I need to bring my car to the technical exam. But this you would never say to your kid if there was your husband or wife sitting at the table. You would talk to them, and the child would hear it, but it's not the same, because the energy doesn't go straight to the child, you know. So they're still children, and then we expect from them, why did you make such a mess? Because they're kids. Even though they speak wisdom, you know. And it's such a, I told you 10 times, you're telling me so much wisdom, and I have to repeat myself like 20 times a day, and you're still not doing it, you know. So
I catch myself on that as well.
So that's also a thing that I realize is really important, especially if you have like kids that surprise you with wisdom, or with maturity, or with some things that you didn't expect, to still have in mind that it's like multidimensional. In one dimension they are there, and on another dimension they are still kids here in the physical and the human. And to be aware of that. And then ask ourselves as parents, are we coming from control, or are we coming from responsibility? Because just being a conscious parent, we want so much for our children to express as they are, to really be able to develop all of their gifts and talents, and whatever they're carrying and they want to give to the world. And then we are still responsible for them, in particular when they're smaller. Like we need to have, there is sometimes we need to say no. You can't just cross the street and get run over by a car, and I need to, you know, forbid some things. And as much as I would wish to go all and talk to you and have it all beautifully, that we have responsibility, but to ask ourselves, where are we coming from that place of controlling, because I want you to do that, because I want this or that to happen? Or are we coming from real responsibility, you know, of, okay, I'm responsible for your healthy teeth, and I want you to brush your teeth now, and if not, I'll brush them for you, because I don't want to go to the dentist 10 times a year with you, or whatever it is. It's just an example, you know, but like, where is it from real responsibility? And when do I say, like, and you're brushing your teeth again because I just don't like it that he didn't brush them the way I want them to be brushed. You know? And so that's I think that's, as conscious parents, that's always a challenge, to work on our own things and be aware of where we're at.
That's my big, it's the one that I explore the most, and I've got a big I think of the word, but you know, I focus on control daily, in the sense of exactly that. And I love how you explained it. You explained it perfectly around the responsibility versus the control. And at times where I'm really triggered by not being able to get something done, that is normally the case, right? Why is this bothering me? Like, why is she not brushing her teeth, and we need to get out the door, and I'm going to be late? And it's coming really from a place more of understanding. Like, I'm really trying to step back more and more, because the more I try and force anything, the longer it takes to do anything anyway, you know, and it seems to be this lesson that I still don't get sometimes, you know, but, you know, and more, it's just like the forcing just doesn't work. And, you know, just the understanding why the resistance is coming from them and where that control is coming from me has been such an interesting process. And it's really come up a lot just in the past week. Like there's been a lot of cases where I've really had to step back and try and come from a place of understanding, which can be hard to do as a mum when you're just trying to get stuff done as well, right? But yeah, it's the control thing has been my biggest learning, I think, realizing that they just have free will, and you know, there needs to be boundaries for their safety and well-being. That it's not, we're not there to control them into mini us, mini me's, and and
you know, aren't they amazing mirrors?
Too amazing sometimes, maybe.
They're too amazing sometimes. We don't want to have it that amazing, but they're amazing mirrors, because I realize that too, and especially intuitive kids, like awake kids, or usually they're highly sensitive kids as well. And one of the things, and I don't know if everybody listening knows about highly sensitive kids, but if you're asking yourself why your kid just reacts suddenly so strange, so look into that, because highly sensitive kids just take all this in unfiltered, like all the impressions. They can be sensitive to sound where you filter it out, but they cannot filter it out, or whatever they see. Like my son would go around and we would get home and he says, like, you know, that house with the red little dots in that and that and that. And I'm like, I didn't even see that house. Which house are you talking about? So he just gets every single detail of everything. And they hear everything. They just take it all in. And then they have a point where they get overwhelmed. And they react like every kid reacts to our energy, but highly sensitive kids react like, I feel like double, like 10 times more, you know. So when I'm in stress because we need to leave and he's not doing it, and I'm putting pressure, he's going to mirror that exactly like your daughter. I have no chance. He's going to block and he's not going to do anything. And then I get more and more angry and he blocks more and more, and it's really a catastrophe. So I really
and they
have
don't budge.
To come back into my heart and to come from love and to completely calm down and be completely in my power, like in my body, in my presence, in my heart, and then go completely calm and say, like, look, the bus is leaving, and if we leave, this and this happens, please put on your shoes now, because we really have to go now. And look into his eyes, come down, look into his eyes and tell him. And otherwise, like, or even stuff like being in the kitchen, and some moms can do that, and I go like, oh, how can you do that? She's in the kitchen and she tells her child, honey, go wash your hands, we're going to have lunch, and the kids go and wash their hands. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can forget about that, you know, 90% of the time this doesn't work.
Same.
But it's also a gift, because they have all this, they need to filter out sometimes, and they're very good at filtering what they don't want, which is amazing. But also, it's this being aware of that. If they say, oh, mom, this is scratching, and you go like, this material is not scratching, and then you find this little something on it, and it was the thing that was scratching their skin. But take them for full for that. This is really for them. This is really, really important. And I have that too in I think you're also highly sensitive, so you might relate to that. But sometimes parents don't feel it themselves, or we feel something else, like I don't care about this little thing scratching me, but I care about the, you know, noise or something. So just remember, hey, that's what they care about, and that's what bothers them, and take that for full, because you cannot, you know, awake kids usually are highly sensitive because they have these filters not in place that we filter to have only the physical, what we see, and only part of it, you know. And I think all kids come into life awake, especially now. We are very invited to change the way we are parenting, also by, you know, working on our own things. just because they take it all on. And I'd like to say one more thing, you know, many more things, but something that's really important to me as the children that are born now, or for a few years, that are young adults now, they will experience a completely different world than we have experienced. And especially now in these times, we start getting a glimpse of that. And I am 100%, that's my deepest belief, that the world is changing. And we are sometimes so worried about them. Oh, they'll be bullied at school, or they'll be, if they're different. And we try to make them the way society is right now. Society is not going to stay the same. The world is not going to stay the same. The systems are crumbling. And the children that are small now, or young adults now, they are here to create that new world with us, to bring it forth in a new way. And they have to be different, because the world is not going back. And so rather than trying to make them fit in and be worried about them being bullied, I believe we should really, really strengthen them in who they are. In being different is okay. Everyone is different. And there is no normal. Normal is past. That's past life. That doesn't exist anymore in this world. You know, we're looking for a new normal, and maybe there will nothing will be normal, because everything will be different. But telling them that it's okay to be the way they are, and showing them to love them as they are, to not try to make them fit in, to explain to them that there are many people who do not see the world the way they do, and that this is okay too. You know, so they can grow up in a more empowered way. Because my son tells me sometimes, he says, Mom, your work of helping people to open their hearts and activate their hearts, he doesn't say activate, but that's what I do. Like, this is the greatest help you can give to me, because one day, and he says that, I will bring things to this world, and I cannot do that if people have closed hearts. He's 7. He's
That's
7
amazing.
and he's telling these things to me, and I'm like, you know, then I go like, oh, thank you, you know.
Yeah.
It's really, and that's the essence. All the kids, like, you don't need to have a child who's like talking to animals or plants. It can be a child like my boy is very interested in technology, you know, like technology and how things work and function, and mechanics and physics and all of that. It can be an artist. It can be, I mean, I'm not saying the kids are artists already, but they can be interested in art, in crafting, in whatever it is. You don't even have to see the signs, but maybe for all parents, it's the same, like, because the world is changing, and we shouldn't make them fit in. We should make them feel okay, however they are. And I think that's the biggest thing the biggest gift. So they feel heard, they feel seen, that we can give to them. And they will have to, we need to unprogram our own programming of how people have to be and what society has to look like, because it will change completely.
Yeah, exactly. It starts with us. You know, and it's it's a hard one as well, because I've had again this week I had an experience with my daughter, and she is so highly sensitive. In a event that she was going to, like an activity that we go to, that's just started back up again, and the I don't know, I guess you'd call it teacher. So the person taking the activity, it wasn't like a school teacher, you know, like a daycare teacher or anything like that, but gave her an ultimatum that unless she did this certain thing, then she wasn't going to be able to do, like, finish or come back to me. And all of a sudden, she was a barrier between my daughter getting back to me. And I'm almost in tears because I can see the sensitivity in her. And but it's this dynamic playing out of, you know, someone who doesn't quite understand and is being you know, with all the best intentions, is more of the power teaching to the children, versus realizing there's someone that's sensitive. It wouldn't have mattered how many ultimations she would have given my daughter would automatically just shut down and would never do what she was asked. And that's a really hard dynamic, because part of me wants to give that person the space to do the job they've been employed to do, for the activity that she was trying to teach. But the other part of me wants to jump in and, and try and explain it that this is different. This isn't going to work. Like, you can't give someone an ultimatum, and it's not life or death. Or, if she wants to stop the activity now, then that's free will, and I'm totally okay that she does. It's not about having to sit down and listen and not talk and not, and be ruled, and so it's a hard dynamic, I find, with that, in the sense of I got a real bad case of mum guilt because I didn't feel like I supported my daughter for what I knew was my truth and wanted to, because I felt a little bit intimidated by the teacher and her looking at me like I was meant to be doing something to enforce what she was doing, which I didn't agree with. But it's all learning, right? So I know next time, and I've said this to, my daughter now. We sat down and spoke about it, and I apologized to her. And I think that's really important, like for her to understand that I didn't feel like I supported her. And, I'm not sure if she understood the whole dynamics and the context of what was happening, but she knew that whatever I was saying was a heartfelt wish to support her. And I think that's all we can do. But it's just those observations of situations that I'm finding more and more, to navigate can be a little bit difficult. And finding myself in that as a mum or a parent or a carer of a child, to also stand up for my beliefs and not feel like I also need to get sucked into what was, because that's where the change happens. And, it's, people learn from that example as well. So, we
had a lot of these situations. I've for that reason decided to homeschool my child. We had different experiences, but I remember also, like, at some point I went to talk to his preschool teacher. He was in preschool before I homeschooled for 2 years. And I just said, like, look, I would love to explain to you some things. You might have realized these and these things about my son. And I don't know how aware are you of that, but if you know the concept, but he's highly sensitive, and these things happen to him, and that happens, he blocks down and stuff. And she was quite, like, the one of them, the first one, she was quite open, and it wasn't perfect, but it worked much better after that. And she also encouraged him and said, look, if you need some space for yourself, we have this quiet corner and you can always go there and stuff like that. And so she started, I had a lot of talks with her, sometimes to just realign again. With another one, it didn't work at all, but she was not not the teacher you wish for your children, anyone. And so also part of that made me decide to homeschool. And also what I've also experienced was that when I am too worried about him, it's getting much worse. And when that's an energetic thing, when we're worried about somebody, we make them feel fearful. It's really, it might sound off when I say that like that, but you can experience that in your body. I do sometimes exercises in my courses, and it's really, if we can have faith that our child is going to go through this situation, we might go and help, we might go and talk, but if our consciousness is she or he is strong, she or he can do this, and she or he will get through this very well, and I'm supporting you, and I'm standing behind your back, I'm having your back, then the children can take that completely differently. And it happened to me with a babysitter, and it was really interesting because my son was crying and I had to work. I was in the middle of a seminar, and suddenly he wouldn't accept her anymore. Suddenly he would block her. And when I was honest with myself, I had problems the way she was behaving with him. And I didn't trust her fully. And it wasn't something bad that I had to distrust her, like she would do something to him or something like that. But there was this misalignment between her and me. And somebody told me, if you don't give her faith to take care of your child, it will never work. And I don't remember who that was, but it was many years ago because he was really small. And I went like, oh, wow, that's true. And I shifted and I had faith in him. And I said, okay, I'll trust you. Here you go. You know, like,
amazing.
and it worked. He was fine with her. Suddenly, like this,
Wow.
changed completely.
That's an amazing story.
He did fall out of our lives. It wasn't the perfect match, but it was what was needed for it to shift. It doesn't mean you keep that teacher or that school or that babysitter, but your inner, I've experienced that 100 times already. I don't know, but it's really, really, really strong. When you can shift within, the relationships in your life start shifting.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's beautiful. I needed that reminder that's really, that's really powerful. Thank you. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything else you feel like sharing that's coming?
Let me see what I wrote down. Maybe I have something
I have a few notes there as well. I think you've covered most of.
Just like, I think I covered most of it. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about you, Natasha. I'll just check Facebook quickly to see if there's any comments. But if anyone's watching this on the replay, I know there's different time zones here. I know we started at 10 a.m. In Switzerland, was it? Remind me.
Oh, sorry. I just remembered one more thing.
Yeah.
These kids usually need a lot of nature and a lot of grounding. So if you can, go out with them, be in nature as much as you can, let them play in the dirt, in the sand, connect to trees, hug trees, whatever they need to do. Don't make them hug trees. My son does it just because he does it, but like whatever they do, just be as much as you can in nature, because this grounds them, keeps their energy grounded. They are very much in different dimensions, and they need that because we are human beings on a planet living here on Mother Earth, and we are in a human experience, and they're souls sometimes need a bit more time to come in, to ground. So nature helps a lot. I've realized that with my son. He's so in his center when he's in nature. I just wanted to share that because it just I saw it on my notes, and I think that's really, really, really important.
It's just really important. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult when we're rushing from work to daycare or, to take that time just to, easier on weekends and things like that. But
just as much as possible. To allow them to be.
So you're in Switzerland, is that right?
Yes. And I have one more message. I'm sorry for it, because
it's
just a really important one for me, because I've heard also with other speakers, and it was really what changed for me just recently. It changed the whole thing for me of how I'm parenting. We have this calling usually also, right? Mothers, we also have wishes, like you have your thing that you're doing, I have my thing that I'm doing. We have these ideas and dreams and stuff. And sometimes we look at it like, oh, I have this calling, I have this wish to support humanity or to share my art or whatever, and I'm a mother. And so here's my calling and here's my parenting. And it was really my thing, like, how can I, take this time apart for following my calling, until I realized we have many callings. One of my callings is being a mother of an awake child. And another calling is to support people in opening their hearts and in their awakening process. And so if you can look at it, it's just, then it all comes together, it's just part of your calling. So it means your calling is being a mom or a dad as much as it is to do your job or your dreams, to follow your dreams. And then it all comes into each other as one. And suddenly there is no separation anymore. So taking unity consciousness in that as well. And I just wanted to share that because I find that has changed my life amazingly. Like really, I don't see it anymore as this struggle of getting some time away so I can do my work. It's just all flowing into one into another, because it's all my purpose. It's all my calling.
I love it. Thank you. That was a great share.
Sorry, now I'm done.
I benefit from that already. Absolutely. And I find myself doing that separation and wanting that time to do the business side. And I love it. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. And just a little bit more, Natasha, about your offerings, and
Yeah.
put links and things in the video. I'll edit it after we jump off and put your website and Facebook links. But yeah, just any offerings you've got coming up, or just a little bit about the work you do.
Sure. And so people can catch up with me through my website. It's www.nathealing, NATHEALING.net. And also I have a Facebook group. It's called Love Your Life with Nat Healing, where I'm sharing most of my posts and videos and almost everything. And through my website, you can also sign up to a free gratitude, heart opening and expansion meditation. So it's on nathealing.net. And I love this meditation. It's really for just starting to ground, connect to source, connect to the earth, open and expand your heart and feel gratitude, because gratitude brings us in a vibration where the whole reality can come in differently. And at the moment I have, it should have started on May 26th, but it's going to start on May 9th. I have a offering. It's an amazing program. It really is, because I put together a whole home study course with my greatest steps that I took to shift from that fatigue and near burnout experience that I had, that I told you about, into the, I think you see that I'm quite a vibrant being.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am, like having my energy and loving my life and sharing my gifts and raising my kid. And so the most important steps, and it is called More Energy and Vitality in Your Life. And this is not we talked about self-care, and it is a lot about self-care, but it's not that self-care program in terms of, okay, now you go jog for half an hour and you eat this and this food and that. It's part of it. We're human. We need to support our bodies. It's going to be just a short part of that, but the most part of it is reclaiming your power, reclaiming your energy, shifting your consciousness, and having a clear step-by-step process on really, because when I was creating it, I realized I don't want another toolbox. People have enough tools. I had all the tools, you said in the beginning what I trained in, and I was applying them, but what was missing was the shift in consciousness, the shift in coming from the heart as well, and that clear process of what I do, and a step-by-step process to keep my energy high and to allow myself to replenish in every moment and allow life force to flow through me and to bring me up to the energy, and my immune system improved and everything. And so I decided to add life calls to that. And it's an amazing offer. It's really exceptional. I don't know if the price is going to stay for long like that. It's almost for free. It's like $88 for a full home study course, plus 2 live calls, plus 2 Facebook lives. I know it's crazy, but I know that people are in lockdown, that people are worried. And I just wanted everybody to be able to benefit, because my mission is really to support people in their awakening. And my mission is to support humanity in awakening and to co-create a new world. Obviously, co-create a new world. And we can do that only. We can follow our dreams. We can follow our fullest expression and our life's desires and have a magnificent life. And we need energy for that, because I was there. I wanted to follow my heart, but I was too sick. And I know what that feels like. And it's for everybody who just wants to have more vitality and to reclaim their power, to really come from a place of self-love, not self-care in terms of discipline, but self-love from a deep, deep place where self-care becomes just a natural thing to do. And where you can really experience what it feels like when you're lit up by life force that flows through you, and not just living from day to day.
I love that. It's so important. Yeah.
And that's available also. You can go through it to my website on the courses and you'll find that, or you can go straight to nathealing.thinkific.com, and that's where the course, you'll find that course, and you can look at it. Also free preview. So there's a free preview of the 2 introductory lessons, so you can see if you resonate or not.
Yeah.
So that's what I have right now. Yeah.
It's
and I do, of course, I do private mentorships and I do private sessions, and you can just look into my website and you'll find everything.
Yeah, I think I first connected with you. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it was through just following Zoe and maybe seeing a post, that I think I messaged you or commented. I did one of your New Year's meditation, the calling in, I can't quite remember the intention writing, and I was just so in love with the energy and how you presented it and the lies, and it's like, oh, so amazing. Yeah. It was just so, it was beautiful. I remember it was so significant. It might have even been New Year's Day that I did it, and it was something that I carried on, not just for that, you know, the new year, but more for the, you know, the monthly, and just the little ritual of it was just so beautiful.
Wow,
and I think definitely
thank you for sharing. Wow.
I shared it with a few people. I remember thinking, this is awesome. People need to be doing this.
Beautiful.
Is, you know, that whole self-care, and you alluded to it as well during our discussion. It's such a common theme that for some reason it's almost like this, probably, I don't know if it's actually unintentional, but almost an intentional self-sabotage for not taking that time for ourselves. And it's just so important to our parenting, our wellness, ourselves, everything. And so I love that offering, especially that it's coming from a place of love and self-love, because that's where our care starts, right, with us. So it sounds beautiful. Yeah, it really does. So I'll put those links up. Thank you so much. I haven't been very good with technology and checking Facebook. I just wanted to listen to what you were saying and give you my attention. So
thank you. We can still answer the questions. If there's any questions, we can still answer them on the comments. So if people have questions, feel free to just put it in the comments and we'll answer. Right?
Yeah, definitely. So if you are watching the replay and you have questions, please just put them in there, and Natasha or myself will comment or answer on those, and I'll edit the post to include your links to your website and your Facebook group and the offering. And thank you so much.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. And thank you for what you're doing. You're doing such an amazing job. It's just really, really, it's amazing. Yeah, thank you for
so much. I think
that's so needed, and yeah, for parents and for kids, we both need it.
Yeah, I think it's just around the community. It's really just building a community. You know, it's never been about me, and it's just, I just really want to get these connections between people, and awareness of people that people can reach out to or contact, or know that they're not, you know, that it's just there. So
guidance. We need it. Wow,
thank
beautiful.
you so much. We'll talk again soon.
Talk soon. Bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone.